Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and knock this out. Alright, first question. You preach squatting past parallel, but many powerlifters, from what I've seen, no longer squat that deep. For example, Stefi Cohen. The same could be said about the bench press. Many powerlifters use an overly wide grip to push more kilograms. Should we all edit our techniques to hit their numbers, or should your strength standards be re-examined? I don't think you need to change what you're doing. Look. What you need to remember is that the really, really wide bench press, I don't believe it activates any more muscle. You're adding width to reduce range of motion so that you can add more weight. Keep in mind there are limits put into powerlifting on how far you're allowed to grip the bar also to try to minimize that to some extent. But yeah, you can still grip pretty wide in a competition, but you're cutting range of motion out. Adding weight by reducing range of motion doesn't help you gain muscle or strength faster. With the squatting, I don't know why a lot of them do. A lot of them do that because you can lift more weight with a partial squat, right? If you add 3 inches to your range of motion on your squat, it reduces the weight. So the whole point here is that a lot of them might train that way and then they get barely passed in some competitions because some feds are less strict on it. That doesn't mean it's the way that you should all be training, though, if you are trying to maximize actual strength gains, maximize hypertrophy, and you're trying to minimize damage, because partial squats like that, in my opinion, it does put more wear and tear on your knee. It puts more wear and tear on your knee just like knee wraps do. I think really wide bench press puts more wear and tear on your shoulders. So I would say that, look, continue to squat just below parallel and do medium and closed grip bench presses if your goal is to maximize strength and development while minimizing risk. Some of these other things might work in a competitive environment in which you are allowed to get away with them when your goal is to win. But winning is not necessarily the same as longevity, and that's a point that needs to be remembered. Alright, next question. Hey Jason, on a budget with limited weights in my arsenal, ooh, I like that word, was looking to do something to add more progressive resistance in my house in terms of squatting. What do you think about the overhead squat as a means of furthering the difficulty and still optimizing the weights? I do have. I would back squat more, but you know, it's what I got. Thank you. Love the channel. All right, brother. You got access to limited weights for now. Your goal needs to be to get more plates, because having to do these lighter exercises is going to limit your development and your strength. However, to make the best of your situation, I would work with front squats first. And yeah, start if you need to. If you can do reps with deep overhead squats with the maximum weights you have, then that might be an option that you could go over to for a while. I don't think that's a bad idea at all. Hey, in fact, it could let you practice things like some snatches and everything else, or some clean and presses so that you can get it into position. You know, go ahead and make it into something that's multifaceted for you. You know, you're going to have to do probably a lot of overhead work, though. If you're very, very limited on weights, I think, again, things like snatches and overhead squats start to become a good idea if you're trying to just get as much muscle and strength as you can out of the very limited amount of equipment that you have, and you can't afford more plates. And I get that, man. People have tight budgets. You know, it's not always easy out there depending on where you are. But I would start looking around while you're doing that for used plates, garage sales, Craigslist, eBay, anything you can find. Try to find some used additional plates. It would be wise for you to try to find what you can on your super tight budget, and do that in the meantime as a fix so that you can at least get some sort of progression and make use of what you have. But hey, I will give you a thumbs up for ingenuity and saying, okay, I'm going to do what I can with what I've got. All right. I mean, I got to give you props for that. That is dedication. So that's the right mentality to have. All right, next question. Due to a service-connected disability I incurred in the infantry, I had to have a surgery that had an end result of both atrophy in my left leg, and my ankle joint on the left side only has 30 degrees range of motion, which isn't enough to do a calf raise. It has caused a major imbalance in the way everything else gets done after the service. I can't seem to correct it in my lower body because of the calf on that side can't really be worked, and because it's still smaller compared to the other one 3 years after the fact. It causes me no end of trouble. So my question is, what works for calf growth absent a calf raise? Here's what I'm going to say, brother. this sort of stuff happens a lot, man. I mean, you see a lot of people who served in any form of infantry who are beat up, banged up, you know, from being thrown out of planes and thrown out of tanks and you know, all that nonsense. So it's pretty common. The fact that you're trying to work around it is awesome. It's awesome. So here's what I would say. Don't worry about your calves. Don't do calf raises at all. Continue to try to squat, deadlift, and do these other exercises and use those to build your calves. Use those to build your calves. Don't try to do calf raises of any type for the other side. That's just going to further the imbalance. And since you know you're not going to go compete in bodybuilding or anything like that, calf development doesn't matter. In other words, if your goal is to squat 500 pounds and you have big enough calves to squat 500 pounds, then your calves are big enough for your goal. You know, look at it from that perspective. I wouldn't worry about it. Calf, again, if you're not running, probably not that important of a muscle, and your calf's going to get some basic development just from your walking around, just your other heavy compound movements. But what I would avoid is training the other calf because of that. You know, there's going to be certain exercises you're not going to be able to do as well. Things like maybe power cleans and things like that, right? Because again, that jump involved, the calf could be a problem there. But avoid those exercises because you've got a good excuse to, and just continue to do your thing, brother. I wouldn't stand around worrying about it in your situation. I wouldn't worry about it because it's not necessarily going to be a problem. There are guys who are amputated at the knee down who still lift some respectable weights on squats and other exercises. They're not getting hurt doing it. Just try to train as balanced as you can and just deal with it, man. It's not really that big of a deal at the end of the day. All right, next question. Please help me out on this, even if it's just a simple 5-second long yes or no in your video. As a former alcoholic, I want to know if drinking kills gains. I limit myself to drinking a bottle a little bit once a week, and it doesn't seem to have hurt my progress. Could drinking actually help me get more calories in? If anything, I just now developed the appetite I need for a slight surplus, but it's not always there. Man, I want to be careful in how I answer this one because I don't want to encourage someone who has a history of being an alcoholic. And let's just call it, bro, if you're a former alcoholic, there is not really a former alcoholic. Something I've just noted over the years, my many years on this earth and dealing with alcoholic family members and everything else, you're always an alcoholic. You're just in remission right now. I would say under a lot of circumstances, no. A bit of drinking, as long as it doesn't cause a person to get dehydrated, can absolutely create a caloric surplus. I know plenty of people who are very jacked, very strong, who go out drinking every Friday night or every Saturday night. I've known many for years. It doesn't seem to impede progress like that in the gym. But here's what I'm going to say, brother. You've got a history of alcoholism. I'm going to recommend that you be very, very cautious about doing that, and don't justify your drinking as a way to say, hey, but this is a good way for me to get in more calories, you know? You see what I'm saying? That's a slippery slope. That's a dangerous path. And, you know, if I could give you just some frank advice there, I would say don't go down that road. That's as bad as me, someone who is a voracious overeater, jumping up and saying, well, I need to regain a little weight, a little bit of pizza. So, you know, a pizza night every Friday is just a good way for me to get some calories in, right? Just a little bit to bulk. You know, probably not the wisest of ideas, you know? All right, next question. Jason, I can't seem to get my shoulders to stop hurting on the barbell squat. I love barbell squatting and all the benefits it brings, but it seems no matter where I put my hands, my shoulders get more and more impinged/hurt. Please help. I have freakish long arms, by the way. You need to work on your mobility more. You need to be doing some shoulder dislocates with bands. You need to be hanging off of a barbell. You need to get your shoulder mobility up. Now, I have long arms, right? I have longer than average arms for my height. So, I mean, I understand it. I know that hand position can really become a problem on barbell squats. They really can. You are going to have to find a position where you can get your shoulders all the way back. Because what's happening is that you're not in scapular retraction. You need to be focusing on getting better at scapular retraction. And so that's what it means, some mobility work. You're going to need to start doing maybe some face pulls, things like that to sort that situation out so that you can get your scapula pulled back and your arms back behind you better when you do this. And you need to quit doing such a really wide a wide grip on it. That might be the problem for you. Try running something quite a bit narrower and learn to pull your scapula back and see if that helps. It probably will. It may not, but work on that mobility work and try that out, and then come back in a couple weeks and let me know how you're doing. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 3.